I came in 1973 to Hong Kong, and the reason was I'm a hotelier, and in those days it was a very new frontier, and actually I wanted to go to Japan. Unfortunately, my experiences were not good enough, so I was able to come to Hong Kong, and I really thought it should be purely a stepping stone, and that I would move on after 2 to 3 years. Well, I'm still here 44 years later, and I have to admit it was not planned that way, but it worked out, of course, a lot better than I expected. When I came in '73, expat didn't really exist. You were just a foreigner, right? And in my business, in the hotel business, is you work with people, for people. So, but the competition amongst the foreign hotel managers was quite fierce because there were very few hotels at that time. Our main clientele were foreigners doing business here, traders, fashion, you name it. So, and I have to say, in those days, our guests didn't really venture out. There was no free restaurant scene, which today is. I mean, today you take Lam Kwai Fong or Soho or on Kowloon side. I mean, there's some. The food scene is very different in those days. In those days, those people who came out and stayed with us, they were afraid because there was this story going around that this couple traveled with their dog and they wanted the dog to have something to eat, and all of a sudden the dog came back on a platter and he was roasted, right? Which I could never confirm this story. The local restaurant scene, the purely Chinese restaurants, were very basic. The food was very good, but people didn't know what to order, or everything was in Chinese and so on. So we were, the life in the hotel was a little bit like a cocoon. But of course, to achieve all this, I had a very extensive local team. And yes, that's where maybe the culture shock came a little bit in, because they were incredible people. Because, for instance, in the kitchen, you showed them once what to do, right? And 5 minutes later, they produced it exactly the way you showed them. The unfortunate thing in those days was they didn't put their finger in the plate or what they cooked because they didn't like Western food, right? And actually, that has changed a little bit now, but it took a very long time. But the skill, the actual skill to cook and present, I was always amazed with them. The Hong Kong people are very hospitable and very welcoming. So when I arrived, and of course I didn't know those things, the first lunch they took me out was for dim sum, which I still, after 44 years, I enjoy very much. And one of the famous dishes are chicken feet, which are braised and so on. And when I saw the first time chicken feet, I thought, wow, in Austria we throw them all away, and We eat everything from the chicken, but not the chicken feet. So we had chicken feet, and then we had roast chicken, and that was even served with the head. And of course, as I was the guest of honor, I don't know, I thought it was the honor. On the other hand, I think they made a joke. So the first piece they gave me to eat was the head. So there was a little bit of a cultural shock. But looking back, it was a shock, or it was, you know, it was unusual. But looking back to those times, I look back very fondly on it because, yes, they had a little bit of fun with me, but on the other hand, the way we worked together and what we achieved, it was all worth it. I came in 73, and then 77 to 79, I hope I can only explain it this way. I was for 2 years in the Philippines, and then I came back as a general manager. One thing Hong Kong has always had, and still has today, I'm not sure if this makes sense. It doesn't matter. I fly back, I come via train, I come via bus back to Hong Kong. I come to Hong Kong, I'm relaxed. Yes, I can say I'm home. And I've had this feeling about Hong Kong basically from day one. But the first time I really realized it is when I moved back from the Philippines. I like to be here. The highest building was the Jardine. Before it was called the Conrad Center, now it's called the Jardine House. So if you look at the skyline on Hong Kong Island, it's not a miniature building either, but compared to the Bank of China, the Needle, you know, or the Center, IFC, etc., it's totally dwarfed. The skyline is totally different. And we had a population of, I think it was 3 million in those days. I'm not 100% sure, but now we have a population of 8 million, more than in Austria, in one city, right? And concentrated really very much in central and on the Kowloon Peninsula. So yes, it was. The life was also a little bit more leisurely. We had a little boat, I mean a little, what do you call it, a cruiser, right? A wooden cruiser, which we spent time every weekend out on the sea. So it was very leisurely. On the other hand, the position I was in, I came here as a restaurant manager, and then I was a food and beverage manager, and so I wasn't a general manager at that time yet. So it was, yeah, life was, and my kids were not there yet either, so they came a little bit later, so yeah, it was a very enjoyable time. Here, even the people had nothing and lived in those things and survived, but they all had an enormous spirit in themselves. They were not downtrodden or anything. They left China, yes, they were not happy people, that's for sure. But it was not, for me it's more shocking if I see Elend. I mean, if I see people really, have given up on their life, etc., etc. That is more shocking to me. They produced in those squatter villages like Diamond Hill, they had complete factories there. They were working and for very little money, but very enterprising. And if we wouldn't have had those people, Hong Kong would not be what it is today. People still came down from China on the Yellow River. I mean, I had one chef, he was aptly named, I mean, his name actually was Mao. And he swam down the Yellow River with a pig's bladder. The Yellow River is very cloudy, right? It's now clear. So they used to float down, and they had pig's bladders as to get air in when they floated past checkpoints, etc. And they also have the dolphins, and they were nibbling on his leg, right? So he had half of his back, the Ferse. What's the Ferse in English? Anyway, was nibbled off, right? But he was a character, and he was a wonderful chef. He's retired now, and so on. So these were the contrasts. I wanted to understand why it is that way. So for 3 years, I was there for 3.5 years, but for 3 years, I did not read or was interested in anything else if it didn't have to do with China. I tried, I went through that particular phase where I tried to understand, or I tried in a way to become Chinese. So even people called me, you know, he's a boiled egg. He's white outside, but he's yellow inside. Every time I opened a hotel somewhere, of course the first thing I have to go is to the market to see what is available, so we can then discuss what menu we can do, or where do we get our bed sheets from, and all that sort of thing. So the market, in any place you go, is always the most important thing. I went to markets where they were still selling rats, beautifully dissected, the innards taken out, you're like a butchery, right? Instead of a chicken, there were rats, a bisamrate. I mean, it is actually very good to eat. Whenever I did something, I had to negotiate with a group of people. Today I understand, one was the party, one was the businessman, they were checking each other and all that sort of thing. And in those days that was very pronounced because they all had to report back, etc., etc. All my experiences, all my things the way I did were because we did them that way. And all of a sudden in China I was asked, why are you doing it that way? And I have to admit, that process sometimes was very, very antagonizing, sometimes very, I felt I was a young man, my authority was, you know, why didn't they just do it the way I told them to, right? Why are they asking me? Why, you know, of course, it was a very therapeutic and stressful period I went through, because I realized that there were definitely many things which we just did and really didn't make any sense either. Didn't make any business sense, didn't make any, and so on. So that that period really brought home to me, why am I there? I'm not there because I'm an Austrian and because I'm a hotelier. No, I'm there to run a hotel, to set up a hotel, to manage a hotel, to train the people, but also to make money for them and help China to develop the industry. What they have done, where they had a total communist system, which it still is, but the way they have worked the system to create the infrastructure with the fastest trains, with the all new airports, all this they have done in 30 years, a little bit over 30 years, it is mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling. And is this a good system? Is this a bad system? For me, I don't care. For me, it's important what they've done for their people. I'm an Austrian. And I have to say I enjoy going back every summer because it is very, very different. And it is a very nice part of the world. And as long as I can travel, I will be able to actually enjoy both very much. Once I cannot travel anymore, I will also have no problem to be back in Austria. Do you understand what I mean? I'm very comfortable as well there. So no, I'm an Austrian, and yeah, that's what I am. And yes, one goes through phases in life, one wants to, but on the end of the day, that's what I am. And I'm a very happy Austrian.